Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. My name is Bree Noble, and I'm excited to be here with Eli Lev. We are going to talk about some pretty cool, cutting edge marketing ideas for musicians. When he sent me a list of some of the things that he's doing, I was like, these are cool. Like, these are things that we've not talked about on the podcast. Some of them are niche, some of them are, a little more broader strokes, but all things that I think people that are watching or listening to this show can incorporate. So before we get into that, I would love for you to just tell people a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you are, how you got started with music and how you ended up doing all these interesting marketing and income streams.
Yeah, great to be here, Bree. Thanks for having me. My name is Eli Lev, and I am a independent musician from Silver Spring, Maryland. I'm actually a former middle school teacher. I taught on the Navajo Indian Reservation in Arizona for a few years. I taught abroad in Israel and Andorra. I came back to get my master's degree in English education and instead became a full-time musician. And I've been following you for my entire career. And
That's
so I'm
cool.
very excited to be here on the show with you.
That's awesome. Well, I've been around. I was just saying I just got to my 10-year anniversary of running my academy and basically my podcast helping musicians and all that. And it's like, wow, has it really been 10 years?
Yeah, it's amazing to kind of like catch those milestones. But congratulations, it's amazing.
Thank
Yep.
you. How long have you been, performing as a musician?
I think I've always been writing silly songs my whole life, but I
Hmm.
never thought like doing it full time as a living it was even possible. I was in a high school band. I played, cover songs in the mountains for English tourists in Europe. And I was jamming in college and stuff. Music has been around, but really kind of leaning into it as a total support mechanism has been a gradual process.
Got it. And did you teach music in middle school or were you a totally different subject?
I didn't, Brie. I am not classically trained. I took piano for like 2 years. I had guitar lessons for like 1 year. And really, it's just a lot of me making noises on different instruments
Mm.
and recording what I think sounds good.
Wow. Well, I'm curious, like, what made you think I can do this musician thing? I don't have any training. I don't, don't have a lot of experience. Like, what made you go like, I'm gonna go this route?
Yeah, I think when I came back from a master's degree, I was helping my mom and dad with some health stuff locally, and they're fine. But I couldn't get a standard job, 9 to 5 or a school year because I had to be around to help them. So I
Mm.
was doing Uber driving, Lyft driving, just kind of various things on the side, and I started doing gigs, original gigs, cover gigs, bar gigs. I was connecting with different local agents, going to the open mic scene and the music scene in Washington, D.C. We call it the DMV, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia.
Mm.
Is was incredible. So very welcoming, very supportive. It was like the perfect pond size for me to develop my artistry.
Mm. That's cool. Well, yeah, I feel like community is so important in our development and seeing other people that look like us that like make us think we could actually do it. We're not just looking at these big artists and be like, oh, I could never be like them. Seeing people in our own community, right?
That's huge. Yeah, that's it. Kind of, I never even thought about it until you said it, but you're absolutely right. I didn't know that there was even like different rungs on the ladder to get to that point until I really started connecting with my local music community. And I started learning about, okay, which bands are hot right now, which bands are on the come up, which bands are just forming, which folks are just finding their voice in open mics. And yeah, you could really kind of see that there's so much opportunity for musicians in any level to really participate.
Yeah, for me, I went to an event one time and I saw this girl who was doing like a speaking and singing thing. And I'm like, I could do that. Like, that's something that makes sense to me. And so immediately I stalked her. Like I went online, I was like, where is she performing? Like looking at all of her past events on her website and,
Yeah,
all her upcoming calendar stuff. And then I started going on these rabbit holes into like, okay, what are some other artists that she's played with before? What gigs did they do and stuff like that. And
right.
that's how I started building my calendar. But I needed that
Yeah.
inspiration because before that I was like, who would want what I have to offer? And then I see this person that's kind of similar to me, and I'm like, I could do that, and someone wants what she has to offer?
That's exactly it. And there are a few artists just like that in my community that was like, I mean, they're good, they're great, but like, I feel like I have a similar vibe. I can offer my own kind of take on that. And I did do what you said to their calendars and say, hey, where are they playing? And sure enough, that was my the indie folk Americana community. So, yep,
Yeah,
I totally agree.
that's so cool. So, how did you go from that to like, I have an actual business and I want to learn like all these marketing tactics in order to really promote myself? Because you've incorporated a lot of them over the years and some really interesting ones, but you didn't start out like that.
No, I really have to thank my mom. When she retired, she created her own LLC and started her own consulting company. I was like, wait, mom, you can just start your own business? She's like, yeah, you just go online and put on a name and pay a few $100 and you got a business in Maryland. And then learning how to like set up bank accounts, connect with an accountant, QuickBooks. And I very quickly realized that, hey, I'm an independent artist. I have no manager. I have no label. I need to create my own. So
Mm.
through courses like yours, through courses like Modern Musician, through courses like we were talking about Piamo earlier, there's lots of kind of mentors out there that have really amazing things to say. So I just started learning, started studying how to create a business, how to market, and how to make doing what I love sustain me financially.
Mm. Now, when you did that and you invested in courses and mentors and all that, did you have a side job or were you doing this all from like musician money?
All from musician money. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Okay, I'm impressed.
yeah. It was I mean, I was doing like Lyft, but really not that much. I was just kind of like dabbling in it. Um, and I had luxuries of being supported, having very low, kind of like debt ceilings. So I'd kind of set up my life, and you make choices. I made a choice like, okay, I'm not gonna go the buy a house, set up a family route. I'm gonna go the travel the world, teach on a
Mm.
Navajo Indian reservation, learn about the Middle East and Europe route. So that kind of gave me the flexibility to be able to pursue music.
Yeah, yeah. And that's important, right? You got to either build your life around the career that you want, or then if you've already gotten established in a certain kind of life, like I was, then you have to build your career around the life that you have, or there's just going to be this awful like clashing all the time.
Yeah, how was that for you building your music career around, your already career?
Yeah, it was a challenge, I was already a director of finance at an opera company. And then I had my first daughter, and I had to figure out, like, if I really wanted this, how could I make it work? And some things I had to get innovative with. Like I figured out that at that point we could sell our house and make a lot of money in the market. And so I kind of sold the house in order to get a nest egg in order to quit my
Yeah,
job.
yeah,
So
there
you
you
got to
go.
think a little outside the box.
Big moves. Nice.
Yep, yep. And it's really hard to like have a job and have a baby and try to run a music career. So I'm like, I have to pick two of these, not
Yeah,
three of them. And so
yeah.
for that time period, I chose, I managed to exit my job in a way where I still worked like 8 hours a week.
Okay,
So I
great.
could still, have that little cushion of money, that was
Hmm.
coming in all the time, which I think is really helpful for artists
Yeah,
if you can have a residency or something where you know that you have some money coming in all the time, so you're
yeah,
not having that like desperate feeling of like I need to pay my rent, and if I don't get this gig or I don't get enough tips at this gig, I'm not going to be able to pay my
yeah,
rent.
yeah. that can be hard. Yeah, and I wouldn't even call it sacrifice. I would just call it setting up, one's life in a way that you know, allows us to take some risks and to follow our path and connect with our calling, I think.
Yeah, I like how you said that. You set up your life in a way that allows you to take some risks. And that's
Hmm.
exactly, when I got that nest egg from the house, is like this gives me a few years to figure this out
Yeah,
and take some risks and not be like, okay, if this doesn't work out, I'm not going to be able to pay my bills.
right. Yep. Yep, totally. Yeah, that's smart. And I think that both of those ways are valid. You know what I mean? There's a way where it's like, okay, I'm gonna go all in. That works for some people. And where it's like, I want to like tip my toe in a little bit, and like kind of like see if this is for me. And there's also kind of like, if that is working, okay, I'm ready to take on a little bit more shows. You know what I mean? How do I adjust my life so that works a little bit better? So I think that both any way in, should be individualized and work for whoever that artist is.
I agree because it's a lot about personality and the way that you work because some people they just have to go all in on the thing, right? And in that case, like you did, you have to figure out how to make it work all in.
Yep,
I didn't have to do that and I didn't want to do that. And it
yep,
doesn't fit my personality. I'm not like a huge entrepreneurial rich risk taker. Like I can do some of that, but I also am, more of the like organized, practical person. So I had to keep that going in the background too.
yep. Totally understand. And just a quick apology on the car horn. I'm actually on tour right now in New York.
Nice. Yeah, it's hard to
So,
keep noise out in New York, that's for sure. You know what? The Zoom does a really good job of cutting that out because I couldn't hear it. It just like all of a sudden cut out sound.
okay.
So we didn't hear it, but it was like, whoa, what happened?
Yep.
No, I love it. It's great. It's great to have people, in their native tour world. It's fun to talk to people in that way. So, speaking of that, let's talk about some of the interesting marketing things that you mentioned to me that you're doing. And since you're on tour, let's first talk about the QR code because I think that's really important. I feel like not enough musicians are using this. We've actually started using QR codes at our church like all the
Oh
time for
wow,
like every
great.
single event that we have now has a
Yeah,
QR code.
yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, no, I tour. So last year I toured around the U.S. and Canada, and I played 250 shows
Wow.
altogether.
Wow.
This year in January, I was in Europe. I flew into Portugal and toured from Portugal, Spain, Andorra, France, Switzerland, Poland, and Austria. Then flew into the UK for another month tour and 3 dates in Ireland as well, before being
Oh,
back now on my spring tour.
jealous.
A lot of moving and shaking. And think about how many people that hear me, see me in that time. And for me to think that a notebook where people are going to write their names in an email is going to work in all those situations, it's not. In some situations that's great, like a house show. It's very
Hmm.
intimate. You've got a
Yep.
notebook, you pass it
More
around,
like a guest
fantastic.
book, right? For a house show.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that works. That works great. But a lot of these venues, I play everywhere. Bree, I'll play wineries, breweries, full-time venues. I'll play yoga studios, libraries, schools, town halls, you name it. And one way that I found to really give people an opportunity to continue to connect with me are these QR codes. And there's two ways that I do that. One is by the big, really professional kind of poster
Hmm.
on stage. Those kind of like fold up posters that
Yep.
you see at conferences and stuff.
Yep.
A big one that says my name, my logo, and just connect with me here and a QR code below. So if people are seeing me on stage, they can point their camera and connect right
Yeah.
there.
No, I've seen buskers use those, and I've
Yep,
actually captured QR codes from those and followed them.
there you go. Yep. And then sometimes there's places where, it's more like a table service or people are kind of just passing by. And in that case, I use like the little restaurant kind of menu table top
Oh,
QR codes. So I just print them out 4x6 or 5x7. and I put those on every table. So I
That's a
bring about
really good
20.
idea. Like if you're
Yeah.
doing coffee shops or wineries and stuff like that,
Yep.
that's a great idea.
Exactly. And not everybody has the angle of the stage in those spots for the roll up
Yeah,
poster.
that's
So
true.
I'll put those outside. I'll put those on the tables. I'll put those on the counters when I ask the venue. And that way, people can immediately sign up for my mailing list, sign up for my texting list, and follow me online and see where I'm streaming as well.
So how do you find our venues pretty okay with that? Like I'm assuming you always ask them before you do it.
I always ask them before I do it, and I've only had one venue say no, and I've played in 800 venues. So it's always good to
What's up with that venue? That's crazy. Out of 800.
ask.
That's
Always
funny.
show, it's like 5, 10, 20 people are signing up for my mailing list. You times that by 250 over a year, you can get a really nice kind of clip, really nice momentum going.
That's amazing. So then what do you have on the back end? I'm very big on this, as far as like email and stuff. What kind of a welcome email do you have, and what is kind of the next action do you have them take? Like, is it reply? Is it go sign up on my Instagram? Like, what is kind of the next thing you want them to do once they've met you and they're on your list?
Yeah, no, I love that question because for me, I'm really leaning into the angle of conversation.
Hmm.
So the first two emails are eliciting a reply. The
Mm.
first one is, did you get this email with some other information about me? They can, join my group and all this other stuff and just a little bit more on story. The second email is asking them what are their favorite artists right now, just so I can kind of like stay on top of, what's going on in the music world and also kind of connect with them in that way. And my emails are not really newsletters. They're more like just a note to a friend.
Mm.
That's just kind of how my brand is. So eliciting a reply quickly and setting the expectation that's like, hey, this is actually me. You're actually entering into a lifelong conversation with me. There's an opportunity there. Is really important for my connection. And my community is called the Levitators. Get it? Eli Lev
I love
Levitators.
it.
So
That's great.
that's a fun entry point. Yep.
But so do you have a community that's like in a specific place, like on Facebook or on like how do you kind of communicate with them outside of email?
I do. During the pandemic, the Facebook groups were pretty big, and I kind of leaned into that a little bit. But I have a few different places where folks can congregate. One is Patreon, one is
Mhm.
Facebook groups, another one is my Folk Friday live stream I do every week. So part of that email strategy is getting a reply, coming back to see me live on Folk Friday, and continuing that those good vibes. And also, I consider my texting list and my email list kind of like a direct way to communicate with levitators. And actually, Brie, I'm not that big on social media. Like, I'm on there and I have stuff and it's great and they can find me. But really, most of my connection is live streaming, emails, and texts.
Which I think is great. Like if you're live streaming once a week, you don't have to be on social media. That is on social media, in my
It
opinion.
is.
Like if they can connect with you, they can comment live, that's even better.
Yep. Yep. And I do the restream thing. So it's on Facebook, it's on YouTube, it's on Twitch, it's on, Instagram, it's on all the things.
Right. I tell artists because a lot of artists that I work with are older and they don't love social media. And they're like,
Hmm.
do I have to do it? And I'm like, no. If you are
No.
out there performing live, you do not have to do it. If you
Yep.
refuse to perform live, then yes, or you're never going to meet anyone new, you
Yeah.
know?
Yep, that's absolutely it. And I've learned that over the years. It's like, wait a second, I can post maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks just so venues can see I have a presence, and it's okay.
Yeah, I mean you're gonna get a lot more people from performing that much live, way more, way
Yeah,
faster than being on social media. So I definitely
yeah,
think you're putting your energy in the right place for sure. And I love that you've got a live stream. So if you're all over the world performing and you're not going to be back there for another year, they can still connect with you every week if they want to.
exactly. Yep, and it's a
So
good
smart.
timing so that yeah, people in Europe, it's like a 3 p.m. Eastern kind of thing. So people in Europe, it's their evening. People in the West Coast, it's their lunch break, and the East Coast, they can jump in the afternoon.
Yep. Yep. It's hard to get that time. And then there's Australians. They're really hard to get.
Then are the Australians. Yeah,
I have some people in my community that are in Australia, and it's really hard to find a time that works for
yep,
them.
that's true. That's
So
true.
you mentioned too that with the QR codes, you're doing something around taking requests. How do you do that?
Yes. So I've set up a semi-technical system where they can actually put in the song name that they want to hear. And I will get a text notification that this person, I get their name and I get the song, the artist and the song that they want to hear. And since I've been performing for about 7 or 8 years, pretty much like nonstop, I have got like maybe at like a 92% success rate on playing cover songs that people want to hear. And even if I fail miserably, they really appreciate that I at
That you
least tried.
tried. So these are cover
So
songs. I was like, I thought these were like your songs that they could request.
they can be both. Yeah,
Okay,
I get both actually. But like if it's a new venue, it just depends on the vibe. You know, if I'm at a dinner show and they're coming to see Eli Lev, then they're requesting original songs. If I'm at
right.
a bar or a coffee shop, they haven't heard of me before, they don't know my song, so they're requesting something that they know. And that's a really good way for them to get used to my style and approach, my interpretation of their favorite song, but like Eli Lev way. And it's immediate. So I have my phone on stage and one of those little kind of holders on the microphone, and I'll get a notification. And I'll say, "This one's for Rachel. Rachel, here is your Jason Mraz tune."
Oh
Or,
my
"Okay,
gosh.
Bob, I've got Jason Isbell coming up next set. Stick around and I'll see you then."
That's crazy. Like, I don't know how you do that on the fly. I could never do that. Do you get, have you ever gotten like just a really random like song that makes no sense for you? I don't know what that would be. You could probably still interpret like Metallica or, Imagine Dragons or
Yes,
something like that. But
yes,
like if
I
someone
get
said
them
like,
all the time.
okay.
Let me I actually have a few here. I'll go through my messages. They stay there. It comes like right to my text, and the name is, I call it my levitators community. So yeah, we've got one here. We've got bare naked ladies, anywhere from bare naked ladies to Noah Khan to Elvis and Willie Nelson, Johnny Cash. I mean everything.
Those all make sense. What if they said like Bjork or something?
Then what I would do is I would like take the lyrics and I would play like easy three or four, chord songs, and I would like rap the lyrics or something over
Oh, got it.
over
Okay.
the chorus.
That's fun. Well, I'm impressed. Yeah, but those all sound like songs you could do. Like I could
Yeah,
totally see, Johnny Cash and, Bob Dylan, like all
yeah,
those semi-folky people or country or, pop.
yep, yeah. It's all pretty accessible.
That's cool. I love that. I love that you can do that and on the fly. That's insane. I could never do that. So I want to
Fine.
ask about this came to mind when you were talking about asking your people when they come onto your list, like what other artists that they like. I mean, that's could also help with this, right? You could be like, oh, I better learn some Johnny Cash songs if they say Johnny Cash, or like new artists, like Noah Khan or whatever.
Yep,
And it also was making me think about how you could then kind of strategically align yourself on something like Spotify by like creating playlists or like
yeah,
reaching out to those artists and swapping tracks or whatever. How have you used Spotify in that way? And you mentioned also like local playlists. I don't know anything about that. That's interesting.
yeah. So in my community, the DMV, there's a lot of different genres, but we're all kind of indie and we all kind of support each other. So I create these kind of quarterly or seasonal playlists where I take any new song that any group has released in my local area and I add it to my playlist. So I can
Mm.
post this on my local musicians Facebook group. Where it's like, hey y'all, did you release a song in the last 6 months or this last year? Put the link below. It triggers the algorithm, and I've got 50 or 60 bands that know who I am, that want to be on my playlist, and we're all listening to each other. So I've been doing this for about 3, 4 years now, and the playlist has almost 500, 600 followers. And it's a great way to learn about my community and for my community to learn about me. And what Spotify does is it doesn't necessarily match you with the most famous person who your music sounds like. What it does is it matches us on radio with artists who have similar styles, but also similar amounts of listenership. So, for
Yep.
example, on Spotify, it's not going to say if you like Bob Dylan and Neil Young, you'll like Eli Lev. Like, no, if you like Ethan Tash, you know what I mean? And if you like Satellite Station, folk bands that hardly anybody's heard of, you'll also like Eli Lev. So the trick is connecting with artists that have a similar following and a similar sound, and then kind of bringing both of those fan bases together to supercharge releases and collaboration.
Yeah, and then people, if they like indies, they'll probably like more indies, so that
Exactly.
makes sense. Do
Yep.
you ever, do show collaborations with those people too?
I do. Yeah, I do song collaborations. For example, my latest release is a collaboration with Erin Michelle. She's an amazing songwriter from Maryland. And before that was LJR, also from Maryland. I collaborated with songwriters from Pennsylvania, My Silent Bravery. And it's a great way to really kind of interlock fan bases. So some of my top super fans actually are those artists' top super fans. Now,
Wow.
yep.
That's cool. That's really, really, really smart. I love that idea. So everybody think about that idea for your area. I mean, if you're like me and you're in LA, there's like a million artists that I could connect with, but I'd probably want to connect with more of like Inland Empire artists, which are further out than LA because there's
Yeah.
just so many in LA, so get a little more niche as far as your like just your county or something like that.
Yeah, and what you're just to your point, Bree, it's like it really helps too when you go tour. Like if you want to open up a new region, find an artist from that region,
Hmm.
collaborate with them on a song, do a couple live streams together, and all of a sudden you've got people that are going to invite you to their next house show because you played on that song of their favorite artist.
Oh yeah, really, really smart. Smart
Yeah.
ways to get into new markets. So I know you're also really good with funnels. You have a Patreon. Like, what other ways are you making income? Because clearly you're doing a really good job of expanding your fan base, but we really also, besides shows, right, we want to make more income. How are you doing that?
Yeah, so you talked about funnels, and I'm a funnel fan. I love funnels. So when they sign up for the levitators, they are introduced into a like kind of like a sign up landing page where it's like, hey, join the fun and be a levitator here. After that page, I have the free shipping and handling offer for a CD. I am old school, and a lot of my fans still love CDs, and I sell actually vinyl is my top merch selling item
Nice.
on the road and online. So people love that. They love having like a little bit of a something that they can hold. And in my funnel, I have something called a bump. So my first project is called Four Directions. So, if they want one CD, great, but they can bump it and get another CD for $5 or another CD for $5 or all four CDs for 20. So what I'll see a lot is people will come to the show, they'll listen to the music, they'll scan the QR code, they'll like the sound, but maybe they had to go somewhere, or maybe they were with somebody and didn't get a chance to come to the merch table or really say hello. But 2 days or 3 days after, with follow up emails and texts, they'll get a CD, or they'll get two, or they'll get the whole Four Directions project delivered to them by mail. So there's another kind of passive income stream after every show that still allows people to connect with the music and get some good tunes delivered to them.
Very smart. Yeah, I love that. I totally used to use that at live shows of like buy one
Yep.
for this, buy two for this, and if you've got a catalog, then it makes sense. And they're like, heck, why wouldn't I just get all of them? Because it's only a
Yeah.
little bit more.
Yep. That's exactly it. And I mean, let's be honest. Like, think about all the times that we went to shows and we heard a musician like, oh, they sound good, but like we just didn't have the space to go up to them or talk to them. But
Uh,
the QR,
you're
yeah,
with somebody and they're like, I want to leave, but you really
yeah,
want to go to the merch table. Yeah.
exactly. And I've learned that having opportunities for people to connect is huge. in ways that they feel comfortable in.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
And so that all happens in, is it text? Is it like your welcome email sequence or
Mhm. It's both. They kind of like align with each other. So if, maybe my second email sequence is about what their favorite artist is, I'll have a follow-up text a week later saying like, "Hey Rachel, this is Eli Lev from the show last week. Just wanted to say thank you for coming, and I have a playlist of cover songs that I've done that you might like." So then they go to YouTube, they check out this playlist of about 20, 30 songs. So YouTube viewership goes up. They get to know me and my style. And, they know that there's a personal thing going on with the text as well. Let's say on the email sequence, maybe about, a month and a half later after they know my story, they've got a chance to get the CD. I can ask them to join my Patreon. Right
Mm.
when I send that email, right about the same time, I send a text saying like, "Hey, I just released, if you want my whole discography, it's actually here on Patreon. Here's the link to access it." So it's kind of like parallel storylines, but the messages on text are obviously 30 characters, and the messages on emails are more of a story-based communication.
And these are all automated, right?
All
Because
automated.
I mean, obviously, if they write to you directly, you're going to respond, but
Yes.
you can't be doing all this individually.
No, this is all automated. There's tons of different platforms out there. I use Street Team through Modern Musician. Michael Walker created some pretty amazing software around that. But there's tons of platforms where you can do this and set up, kind of sequences and wait times. But yeah, I currently use Street Team.
Yep. Yep. I've heard good things about that, and it's having them both going on at the same time is really,
Yeah.
really smart because the people aren't always looking at their email. People aren't
Yep.
always paying attention to their phone, at different times.
Yep. And I think it's like everybody has different preferences. Like some folks are only on social media. Some folks want to have nothing to do with social
Yeah.
media. Some folks are
Yep.
like, don't send me an email because I have 1,000 emails in my inboxes. And some folks are like, never send me a text. That's too personal. It's just
Hmm.
people have different preferences. So I just do all of them. And they
Yeah.
can,
They can opt out of what they don't want, right? Yeah, makes
yeah.
sense. Well, this has all been really helpful. I love all these very specific ideas that you're offering to people. What have we not talked about that you think that musicians need to know about that is gonna, just spark some ideas of how they can expand even more in their career and their income?
Yeah, I love you have a Money Mojo for Musicians course. And one aspect of that course is the Start Effortlessly Attracting Money. And it's very interesting. There has been this shift in the last 2 or 3 years as a musician where that has really clicked for me.
Mm,
And it's less about, emails and texts and, QR codes and more about presentation, knowing my own worth and that like what I'm doing as an artist is important. And
mm,
also being in a space where like people can take it or leave it, but this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm worth. And that has actually exponentially increased my income. Just that kind of mindset shift. So I want to commend you for adding that into your Money Mojo for musicians as well.
thank you. And that is really important. Just knowing your worth, it just changes the way that you approach everything.
Hmm.
And I talk a lot to musicians that are just so uncomfortable selling from stage, or you don't even have to say it that way, just even talking about their stuff, right? Oh,
Yeah.
I have a merch table. Like they put it in the corner in the dark and they just kind of go like, yeah, it's over there. And then they go on, and just feeling like, hey, like if they want to have it, I want to make sure they know how to have it. If they don't, it's fine. Like they'll just
Hmm.
move on with their life. They're not going to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that person wanted me to buy their stuff. Like,
Right. Right.
they're not
Yeah.
thinking that way, but we start like getting in our own head and be like making up all these conversations that these other people are having in their mind, which they're not.
Yeah.
And if they are, they're not your perfect customer and you don't want to sell to them anyway.
And that's huge. I've also come to the point where I realize it's like not everybody's gonna like my stuff, and that's
Mhm.
better if they don't. And it's better if I find my niche and really understand who my audience is. That allows me to be more confident about my music and allows people to be more confident about enjoying my music because I know who I am and I know what I'm offering. So yeah, and I also want to thank you for being a key voice and a key mentor in the online space when I was coming up as an independent musician. So it's really cool that I get to actually talk to you about, what I've learned and how I've been inspired by you as well.
Thank you. And it's cool for me because I do focus so much on women and my community is all about women. So there's people like you that have been following me all this time and I didn't know it,
Yeah,
because you're not in my community. So we're not like on Zoom together.
right.
So it's really great to know. And what you just said about, being okay with niching down, like
Mm-hmm.
that has been hard for me over the years too, because I'm like, I don't want to exclude men, but I really want to elevate women. And so I've just kind of decided like, hey, this is my thing. I'm going to talk about women in the industry. If men
Yeah.
want to come along, that's so awesome. And I
Yep.
love it, but I used to think like I don't want to like use language that will exclude them. And I'm really kind of leaning into this like, no, this is what I do. And
Yep.
I am happy to have anyone who wants to be an advocate come along and learn and all that stuff. So I appreciate that you said that.
Yep, and you've got allies in the industry, and it's been awesome seeing your growth as well. And I think that's important. It's not about exclusion; it's about really kind of speaking what we feel our truth is and finding our community. So I'm all
Thank
about
you.
that.
That's
Yeah,
awesome. Well, I am so glad we finally met in
yeah,
person, online, but someday in
yeah.
person, hopefully. I'm sure you come to LA on tour, so you'll have to let me
Oh
know
yes,
when
I
you're
do.
here. When you're here. But thank you so much for everything that you shared with musicians. It's really inspiring. And whether you want to tour and do 250 shows a year like Eli does, or if you just want to like set up all this stuff on the back end and just tour in your local area, it all works. You got to figure out what works for your life. So thank you so much for sharing all of that and just being so generous and being a light in the industry right now.
Oh, thank you, Bree. It's been an absolute pleasure. Appreciate you.